Hi, welcome back to the Virtue Bowling Supply YouTube channel. My name is Chris and I'm here to bring the high rev perspective.
And my name is Josh and I'll be bringing the low rev perspective.
All right, today we're gonna be taking a look at the brand new Roto Grip Wicked Gremlin, and I'm gonna be comparing that to the 900 Global Viking and the Roto Grip Gremlin 2RX.
And I'll be comparing it toward the Hammer Zero Mercy Solid and the Storm Alpha Crux. These comparisons will give us and you an idea of what these pieces look like going down the lane. At the end, we will give our honest, unbiased review, anywhere from nuts to trash. With that being said, we are here at Mesa East on a fresh house shot, so make sure to like and subscribe, and we'll see you guys out on the lanes.
To me, this ball hooks a ton. It wants to be that strong and smooth ball, but it still has a quickness to it, so it wants to see the lane pretty early. And when I got it to the friction, it had that teeth and went sideways most of the time. It felt a little bit cliffed, if I'm being honest. Even though it was a fresh house shot, it started to hook quite a bit earlier than I expected. So I had to jump pretty far left, and my angles needed to kind of be more in front of me, because if I used too much of the friction, like I said, it just hooked a little too early. My misses to the left in the oil were a lot better just because it still had teeth. It's definitely not the strongest ball in this category, but it definitely was pretty early and really wanted to hook no matter where you got it. So now I'm gonna go ahead and throw the Viking Conquest and see how that compares. So to me, the Viking Conquest fits a very similar spot to the Wicked Gremlin. They both have a pretty similar length to the front part of the lane in that strong and smooth category, so they're pretty early, but they're not like the earliest ball you're ever gonna throw. They're definitely not as early as something like the Ion Max. So they have a little bit of float to the front part of the lane, but to me the differences are off the end of the pattern. The Viking Conquest to me wanted to be quite a bit smoother than the Gremlin. When I got it to the friction, the Gremlin, you could see that defined kind of change of direction, had the more of hook set, and the Viking Conquest just wanted to be a little bit more blendy. Like my misses to the right definitely still wanted to hook with the Viking, but it just wasn't quite as sideways. So now I'm gonna go ahead and throw the Gremlin 2RX and see how that compares. All right, after seeing the Gremlin 2RX go down the lane, you could definitely see how much kind of cleaner, weaker, and smoother this wanted to be compared to the Wicked Gremlin. Definitely a step down, weaker cover. I still needed to be pretty far left just because of the friction that was here to the right. I definitely saw it more down lane than the Wicked Gremlin did. It wasn't quite sideways. Mine's actually pretty smooth, especially now. So my misses to the right weren't quite as bad. Didn't have quite the amount of teeth as the Wicked Gremlin, but definitely a rounder, kind of more benchmarky shape. All right, final thoughts on the Wicked Gremlin. To me, this one's pretty good. Like I said, with there being a little bit too much friction to the right here, the ball didn't look great, but once I got comfortable and moved left and had my misses more in the oil, this ball motion actually looked pretty good. I think it'll be more of that versatile, strong and smooth piece, especially for higher rev rates that need to get a ball through the front part lane, but still need teeth, especially if you're bowling on a little bit higher volume and you're a little bit more rev dominant. Ball's gonna be pretty good. So to me, I think I'm gonna put this ball in the fire category. From what I saw here, I thought it's gonna be pretty versatile.
For me, this ball is definitely on one of the bigger pieces. I felt like it was a smoother big piece though. I felt like it had a sense of cleanness through the fronts, but overall still hooked a ton. They were hooking here at Mesa East today. It was kind of fresh, but it just felt like the outsides were a little torched. So definitely had to be aware as to when I got this ball to the friction, because it wanted to hook when it did. But once I started to migrate a little bit further left, it definitely started to look better. I was a little hesitant because, like, you know, it still is kind of early, so I still wanted to create a spot, but at the same time, like when they're hooking this much, you just kind of got to send it. And once I got to the oil and where, you know, the ball normally would perform, it looked really good. For me, it was just kind of weird, you know, kind of opening my angles this much for a big ball, but I felt like it was kind of necessary. However, like I said, ball motion still shaped well. Didn't really like the original Gremlin, but really liked the Gremlin 2RX, and this one kind of gave me that similar vibe, just a little bit more overall juice to the ball. So now we're gonna go ahead and throw 5 shots, the Zero Mercy Solid, and see how it compares. This ball I did touch with a slight 2000 just to kind of give it some life. It was a little lane shined, but as you can see, the first 2 shots were kind of the surface reacting. But once I got the ball to get that surface worn off, it definitely was close to the Gremlin. I would say it was just a little bit more forward and not so much off the spot. However, both of these balls, I would say you'd definitely be throwing them at the same time. For me, I just feel like the Gremlin is definitely more of a bendable shape out of a big ball, where the Zero Mercy is a little bit more forward and you can get a little softer with it, as it just tends to be a little bit more tumbly going down the lane. So now we're going to go ahead and throw 5 shots with the Alpha Crux and see how it compares. For me, this ball was the most similar to the Gremlin. However, I did feel like it was just a little bit cleaner in my opinion. I felt like the Gremlin hooked just a little earlier, but they both had a similar reaction to friction and how they responded to it. For me, I felt like they both kind of got off the spot the same way, but I felt like the Gremlin just hooked earlier to where it was able to blend the lane out just a little bit better. Now, it did overall hook more, but I still feel like the Gremlin would have been a little bit of an easier choice just because I feel like the Alpha didn't quite blend the wet dry as well. Final thoughts on the Gremlin. For me, this ball overall really hooked a lot. It definitely was one of the pieces I would say hooked the most for me recently out of a big ball. However, for me, I just felt like this ball was good. It just, again, didn't give me the best ball reaction. However, I did feel like it was worthy of, still throwing it on other shots, especially on a sports shot. I feel like this ball would really be good in that type of territory. So for me, this one was kind of difficult just because the lanes were a little bit fried. However, I am going to put this ball to a fire. I know I didn't strike the most with it, but once I got into the right zone, I feel like it blended the lane really well. And this one was kind of like in between zones, but I felt like I still had good enough ball motion to not give it a mess. So fire for today.
Thank you guys so much for watching. If you found this video useful, make sure to like and subscribe, and we'll see you guys in the next one.